Thank you very much, Angela, and thank you all for being here. I'm super stoked to be invited by Creative Mornings, which I didn't know before. So it was kind of a surprise. And I guess I was invited because so I'm a full-time touring musician in a punk band. Then started a record label, mostly of indie underground artists, so still in the punk realm. That got a lot of attention in Switzerland the last 10 years. And that's what I'm going to be talking about, basically my journey through, the punk environment and how we did create some kind of an economy and a business model out of it with a very safe work environment as well, and how doing things together is actually possible without too much pressure. So a little bit about me that Angela didn't say. Maybe my name is Jonathan, which you said actually. I'm 39 years old. I came back from tour yesterday. That's very true. And I go back on tour on Monday. I love cooking. I love cats, especially blind cats. This is Michelle, my companion that died 7 months ago. And I'm really excited because I'm getting 3 more rescued cats from the same shelter, all blinds, by the end of the month. And I'm incredibly excited. So that's a little bit about me. All the freelance work I do, I run it through a company that I called La Truffe. So in English, it's the truffle, like the fancy mushroom. But in French, La Truffe is also the nose of a dog. So it goes together because the nose of a dog that looks for a truffle, which is, I don't care because I created my own job, so I can call my company however I want. And so it's a bit stupid, but it's a Labrador because that's my spirit animal somehow. Just because, and also, it's a pun because, I'm supposed to be sniffing out talents as being a label manager. And also I like to solve problems willingly and always in a good mood. And I don't know, I think that's what a Labrador does somehow. What I'm doing today is this. That's my main activity. So that's not me, that's my singer. He's always hanging out in the crowd, apparently. So founded this band called Coggins, very punk noise, like probably unlistenable for a lot of people. But somehow we made it into a job. And I've been a touring, so that started in 2011, and I've been a touring musician since 2007. Played around like 1,500 shows plus through the world. So I've been doing this since I was 20. Been very lucky. And I also funded a record label called Hummus Records. I didn't plan on talking about the name, but I can if you want. It used to be called Hummus with 2 M's, because with the band, so the record label was funded for the band initially, not for others, just for our band. And it had 2 M's, like the hummus, the chickpea mash thing that you eat, because playing only squats through Europe with the band, we were eating, squats, and punk is always connected to veganism, vegetarianism, and all that since, 40, 50 years old. And we were eating hummus every day. And some of them were good, some of them were shit. So we decided to call the label Hummus Records. But then slowly, it became like a real thing, and artists started approaching us, and the mission kind of changed. So a couple of years back, we changed the name to Hummus with 1 M, because hummus being the fertile soil. That could you say that in English? Yeah. Okay. Which defined the mission a bit more accurately than chickpeas, especially for artists that had to identify with our name. So now we're just growing artists out of this fertile soil instead of just being a can of chickpea. And we're home to mostly indie artists that maybe you've never heard of. Elizoe, Louis Yuka, that are like artists that are touring like internationally, but to a level that is definitely not mainstream. So we have that. We have music, really noise music that most of the people would hate probably. But we also take care, for example, of Alain Roche, who's, no, that was too fast. Alain Roche, who's a piano player, classic piano player that you might have seen hanging from a crane in the Stade de France for the closing ceremony of the Olympics. So it's very wide, and I'm very happy about it. Now I'm also managing an artist, a Swiss Guatemalan artist called Baby Volcano, who's kind of blowing up now. She just started like, going on the Latin American market, and she's got a real punk attitude as well. That's why I wanted to talk about her real quick, and also the fact that she's playing music that I'm not connected to at all initially, but through the skills I acquired through running a punk band and a punk label, I eventually acquired the skills of an international manager to develop the career of an artist that is completely out of my scope musically. And on top of that, I do consulting in release and band management for bands, but also for a cultural institution. And I do fundraising for nationwide for a lot of artists. There you go. A little bit about my background. My dad was a musician coming from South Italy, from a very poor family. So his destiny was to sell salad on the market, but he self-taught himself into playing piano by watching TV, basically. And eventually he left for tour in the 70s when there were cover bands in clubs and not DJs. When you had really good cover bands playing in hotels for a month and that. So he did that, ended up in Switzerland, met my mother. And eventually when I was born in '86, he decided to stop touring. So he got himself a job in a music shop, decided that having a boss was not his thing. So he started his own shop that he ran for 30 plus years. And so I was raised with the idea that freedom was wealth, really, and that I should create my own job, and that I would be very happy not having to report to anyone and build, an environment for myself. So he really pushed me into this. And afterwards, I also realized that you can, build a company or something and also create a safe environment. It's not, because he was telling me you shouldn't have a boss, but now I'm having people working for me as well, and I want to believe that it's cool, also for them. And I got into music because at the age of like 11 or 12, my sister gave me this songbook from this record from Nirvana. I don't know if you're familiar with this record. That's still to this day one of my top 3 records that I listen at least once every week. And that was a game changer because I was playing guitar already. But when I heard that, I was like, wow, that really struck me. And I was like, that's what I want to do. Being born in Switzerland, obviously, I consider it like an academic cursus, because that's what you think you should do, generally, to make money, becoming a teacher and all that. And so that's where I met, I was taking private lessons to prepare for the jazz school here in Lausanne. And after a couple of years, like my teacher was like, you're gonna fail. It was like, you're gonna fail, you never learn whatever I give you, you always come up with your songs and we always talk about this. So he really pushed me to not pursue this academic cursus, and he told me, well, you should go on tour. You're the kind of guy that should go on tour. And and then I was like, well, but how am I going to make money if I go on tour? Because I had this image, which is kind of true, of people being on tour and not making money at all. And he was like, well, if you go on tour with the experience you're going to have, I'm going to hire you one day for a workshop, for master classes, or things like that. He was like, you're going to have this experience, and I'm sure you're going to be good at it. And the fun fact is that 20 years later, he actually hired me to give master classes at university level when I have never really learned anything about music or band management or release management. So he was really key into my journey. And I want to add that also all of this was possible because I had a very supporting family. I was born in Switzerland, a white male in a Swiss middle class, so everything was kind of given to me. So I understood that very quickly, that I was super lucky and really decided to make the best out of it, because for the people who cannot do it and all that, so I've been quite positive about it and not complain too much. I mean, I have my struggles, but basically I was like, I can do whatever I want. My parents are supporting me, so let's make it happen. I think my father was the first surprise when everything turned out to be where it is now. He was hoping I would play a little bit of music, not that I, did my whole life with it. And yeah, we're gonna slowly go into the theme. That means that everything that I'm going to tell is based and driven by the passion of doing things together with people and not being driven by money, but also because I had the privilege to not care so much about money. So for over 15 years, from when I started my career as a touring musician, I basically was living on $1,500 a month. And I was super happy. I mean, I was traveling the world for free. I met a lot of people, and that's only, I've even been to the social assistance for 2 years, which I took as an opportunity to, to think about what was my big plan for life somehow. But again, that was possible because I was getting support, not support financially from my parents, but I know I had this safety net in case. And I realized 15 years later that it wasn't that I was being poor, it was just that I was investing in my career to get to my mid-30s, and then all of a sudden, in 2021, post-COVID, like all my activities kind of exploded because Switzerland couldn't be, like, we weren't focused on international markets anymore because, COVID was over, but it was still kind of weird. So in Switzerland, they really turned out to Swiss cultural actors, and we were at the forefront of all the cultural activities with my label and the band. And so there, my activities and all the skills that I acquired for 15 years and the experience really exploded. And so, that's when I realized that it was the right move which I didn't know consciously when I did it. About that and the relation also to money, when I was in this situation where I had this $1,500 a month, which for me was fine, there was this bakery in La Chaux-de-Fonds where they had this like super nice fancy chocolate bar for one franc 60. And I had this super tight budget. And so I was writing down everything I was buying all the time to make sure I was staying in budget. And so this branch, I was allowing myself to buy it once a week. And then I was like, maybe one day I can buy it whenever I want. But we're talking about 1 franc 60. It's nothing. It's such a reachable goal. So that came very quickly. So very quickly, the pressure was off because I accomplished what I needed to do, like financially to some extent, And then I was just super happy. I was like, everything else was a bonus. I like now having money and buying stuff and blah blah, but I don't care so much about it. And that's what's been driving me. So I've been doing things for the sake of doing things and not chasing any. I had the ambition of not stagnating and evolving, but never to chase money or anything. And somehow it came back after 15 years. So, so now we're gonna, dive into the theme of punk. My angle is gonna be through DIY, so do it yourself, do things on your own because you don't have a choice, actually, because no one wants to work with you or you don't have the resources to do what you want to do. So you need to create the conditions to make it. That's a picture from my band when we're playing a very, very small venue. That's again my singer. He's kind of doing weird things, basically breaking the PA, and you see an old punk trying to hold it. Yeah, things got wild sometimes. I want to say that punk is a very wide term that can apply to a lifestyle, to people, to a music genre, to a way of doing things. And I'm going to talk about, my vision of punk through the journey I had, through the context of the journey I had. So this is my interpretation. And it started with very, I want to say wise, but I wasn't wise back in the days. I took the decision when my parents were still like, they wanted me to get a diploma. And well, I didn't really want to spend time like studying because I knew I wanted to play music. So I chose like to make an apprenticeship. I was selling mobile phones at Swisscom. But also because I knew that it wouldn't require too much time for me to study or anything. So I was able to do this, to completely float over it for the 3 years, all the while rehearsing with 6 days a week with multiple bands, starting a festival that was running for 15 years. And that, hosted international headliners by the end. And all of that before I was probably, I don't even know, I was before my 20s, actually. So that was a very crucial moment in my career because I decided to invest all this time. I was asked to study. I didn't study, but I faked that I was studying somehow. And that's how I built myself as a musician somehow. And then in 2007, I joined this German band. Very funny story, but too long for now. I joined this German band that was quite established internationally. So I found myself at 20 years old with no knowledge of how to speak English. I mean, I was speaking English, but like only in the present form. I didn't know how else to do it. And I joined this band and this industry where everybody speaks English. And then I find myself on the road. I had never toured. And then all of a sudden I was playing 120 shows a year, like worldwide. And along the way, I brought some people. So this band was based in Berlin, and it was really cool. We built this band also live, and the profiles started being like very visible internationally. And we decided to leave because we couldn't find, we didn't have any more interest artistically. And we're like, what about we do the same thing, but we start our own band? So we did, and we started Colgans, and that was 2011. And since then, so that's 14 years, and we're almost just not quite 40 years old, so it's quite some like forming years. And we decided back then this is going to be our life. And it is still now, 14 years later, this is the core of our life, even though it's the least profitable thing we do. I mean, it's obviously it feeds our soul, but it doesn't pay the rent to some extent. So where it connects with the team is that we had to find a way to keep doing what we wanted to do and what really fed our soul and guts, and find a way to be completely available for this full time, but still make money on the side. So we've been very smart, but it wasn't like planned. We haven't been very smart. It was kind of a luck, but it's just because we worked with our guts and somehow we made the right decisions. And so we built this whole spider web of things that we do that are always connected to the band. The record label, so we can publish our music. Then we started doing promotion, so we can promote our music through the label. And then we started doing fundraising, which is an admin work, which you think, it's not punk at all. But actually, yes, that's how you bring money to the punk bands, so they go on tour. And this whole constellation of things, we started producing records also. We built a studio. And we started producing records for bands that didn't have money to produce records that we can publish on our label, bands that we can bring on tour with us afterwards. And that created this constellation of things where like now we can just sit in the van like 200 years a year, working on our computer 8 hours a day while we drive, and then do our 45-minute shows, and that's it. Because playing music in a band is quite irrational when you think about it. It's just not worth it somehow. Like, financially, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all in any way. Yeah. I wanted to use this slide because this is an article in a newspaper from Fribourg from 2014 that states the label that doesn't have any money. So we made ourselves quite visible within the first 2 years of what we were doing, and we pushed that DIY storytelling, which wasn't so much of a storytelling that the real story actually. And we did this because no one wanted to work with our band initially. So I figured that if I started a label and call myself Records something, people are going to take me more seriously than my old email address, which was colgan666@gmail.com, And I don't know if it worked, but somehow there must have been a need in the French part of Switzerland for a label like that, because we got approached very fast by a lot of artists and the quality was great. And we needed to make experience. We didn't know how to release records, and we had all these artists coming with great records and being like, the record is ready. Do you know how to do this? And we're like, yes. But we didn't. And after 10 releases, we started like figuring out things. And after 30 releases, we were like, oh yeah. And then 50 releases, we're like, yes. And then from 100 releases, we definitely knew what we were doing. And so this was just an accident. It was really like just a shelf at my parents' place. Now it's a small warehouse. We have 6 people working for the label. We have over 170 releases. We're still in the same, like the warehouse is still located in the same place where we have a rehearsal room for like 20 years, except that now we've rented the whole building basically. but it's still very sketchy, a very sketchy place. And when people come there, they're a bit like, eh. But that's what we do, and that's where we're rooted. And I think it's quite fantastic that we were able to do this out of just passion when with no money or no resources, really. And now we have on the label, we still have like 6 or 7 artists that got like the music prize from the federal government that is being given every year. We're regularly invited to national television and radios, and so I'm quite happy, I guess, somehow. And this all happened really by doing things with people and supporting each other. And I think that's crazy. Now I have a hard time thinking I'm an adult sometimes, because I'm still doing the same thing with the same people that were just my friend, but now they're my colleagues as well for some reasons. And we're almost 40 years old, but we still act like post-teenagers. It doesn't make sense. Now digging a bit deeper in DIY, which is really my connection to the theme, to punk, because that's punk and DIY really go together. And it's not because you're DIY that you can't like run a business. And that's something I learned from getting inspiration from like record labels from the US and the UK, like all the English-speaking countries that have no, I feel sometimes in the French-speaking countries or in Switzerland, we have, especially in the cultural area, there's a big taboo about money and calling this a business or something, which Americans don't have a problem with, for example. But it's weird because us as Europeans, we look up to them and being like, oh, they're so punk and they're so great. But then we completely occult to the fact that they're also a business, and they talk about it because they need to. They don't have funding systems like we do here. So they need to see things as a business. Otherwise, they cannot do their thing. And the sacrifices they do and the passion they put into it was very inspirational for us. And it all comes always to DIY. And what I realized is that you might think of punk and DIY as a chaotic thing, like you have on your dress. But it's the opposite of chaos. Like, it's ridiculous the quality you have to deliver as an outsider in a field that is completely undervalued. The quality you have to deliver to just be seen is insane. And because you don't see it as a work, the amount of hours you put and passion in it is just creating strong, understanding, loyal, and super reliable people. And that's what you see in the music industry. If you take like most of the top, I don't know if it's manager, if it's the right term, but actually most of the top managers, top bookers of festivals, venues, etc., most of them, they come from the punk scene, generally, in a wide range, but they were booking shows back in the days in their hometown, or they were a photographer for like punk shows here and there, because you really have no choice to like, put the hours into doing your thing. And also because when you run these kind of like small businesses that have a very fragile economy, any mistake can do a great harm to what you do. So there's no room for it, basically. And yeah, in the end, that's what we all did with the pool of people I work with. And that's what led me personally to talk about these things to university level, for example. Which, I'm sorry, I'm repeating this, it's not to brag, it's just like, it was quite something for me being invited by my music teacher to a university to talk to aspiring musicians about like band management when it's like, sometimes when I give workshops, I'm just like, I don't have the fancy words, or I don't really know what I talk about. I just did things, but I don't know how they're called. So sometimes I'm like, blah, 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 doing things, and I'm like, maybe those are the basic words, lessons that people learn at management class 1, But I don't know. What I know is that it speaks to like emerging artists, and that's my main concern, is that people that cannot comprehend the whole environment, they can understand my word and just feel reassured, or also not reassured, because it's a very tough journey, like to make a living out of music in the wide sense. So in the end, I really learned that being patient was key, not running after things, after success, like in the way we all understand it. And luckily I met some people on the way that were like, because I was frustrated at the beginning, you know, you put all this effort and time and like no one cares, radios didn't care, people didn't buy the records, and I thought I was releasing the best bands in the world, talking about the label. And then I had these people that I work with still now and that are in the band, and they were like, well, they already had this like thinking of like, we gotta do things out of necessity, let's do things. And then you're gonna look back in 10 years and we're gonna have done a lot of things and we're gonna be somewhere and this is gonna be the right place. And I was like, fuck that, you know, I wanna get recognition now. But eventually, you know, I got into the groove of this and didn't look back for a while and just stayed focused on doing things, not caring about money because again, I had the privilege not to. And also because I don't think it works so well in this field, at least. If you do things by interest, it's just not working. I tried a couple of times, you know, like signing an artist that you think like, this is gonna make us, you know, and I just couldn't sell it in the end. So most of the success stories of the bands we take care of and about the label has been just some weird random meetings of like-minded people that really wanted to push things forward and challenge themselves. And like, yeah, truly, and doing things constantly. Doing things, doing. That's also one thing I repeat to when I get like younger artists that I talk to. I'm like, just do things. If you have the privilege to be doing things, not just keep on doing things. I've been saying doing things way too much. Because in the end, if you have the privilege to not think about money, that takes the pressure off. And with that, you make things just for the sake of doing them. And that creates genuine art. And that's what touches people. And eventually, that creates, you know, a safe environment with human interaction where like you're just happy with no pressure. And I don't know if you follow the stretch, but in the end, it's all about feeling good and not too much under pressure and avoiding burnouts like, you know, everyone else. And I think that's the thing that I'm the most proud of what we've built together with my friends is that we create this safe environment and we create a job of our own where we have actually space to take care of each other. And yes, that's it for that part. Am I on time in any ways? Somehow? Almost there, cool. So just talking like taking Coggins as a good example. So a band that started like playing squats, playing really heavy music that 99% of the people on this planet would hate actually, but trying to make it like what we did differently is that we tried to get out of the punk scene, not just the punk scene, but we tried to like widespread this punk ethic and attitude and way of doing things and tried to make it understandable for welcoming for people that were not actually into it. So that meant, you know, thinking about how do we perform on stage, how we make this inclusive so people can be like, wow, I like the energy, even if I don't like the music. And so we worked on that really hard. So it's like, you know, in the end, it's like doing project management for any kind of shitty product, but except that there, we're running a band and we need to find ways to get our message through. And, you know, starting into squats all around Europe, and with this wheel of created a bond with like bigger crowds, we ended up, you know, we're going to be playing this year for the second time at Paleo Festival, which is the biggest mainstream festival in Switzerland. We were nominated for a Swiss Music Award a few weeks ago. We won a prize by Indie Suisse, which is the conglomerate of record labels in Switzerland. We sold a self-produced documentary about our latest record to national television as well. And all that is, you know, it doesn't seem much to the scale of when you think of Taylor Swift and all that, but for a punk band, in our own country at least, you know, it's quite a recognition, and we're not taking pride into the popularity that comes with it, but taking pride in the fact that we were able to create this bond, because it's always been about that, you know. And playing shows now with like full rooms and not just seeing like 30 years old dudes, liking noise music, but also having, older people, much older people, youngsters as well, girls, to like these very mannish dude shows, because sometimes this kind of music is very affiliated to like, it's man's music, so to speak. And for us, it's the biggest success, I think, with this band. And yeah, we did all of this like we grew a little garden with like local ingredients. We've always worked with like, illustrators, engineers, videographers, etc., from our city mostly. And when we started, we all started together, and somehow everybody built their own thing, and now we're all professional in our field. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this. And also, that's a really cool logo because it's a big heart that we have on stage in the back. So even if you deliver some very dark and depressing music, there's always this in the background to remember that we're all here to just, spread love. And now I don't have another slide, but that's going to be the end. So I'm going to go back to this. Basically not aiming at a, success in the capitalistic sense. I can't say we're anti-capitalistic. We also run a business. We also need to make money, but there's a good way to do it, and I think that's what I'm taking the most pride in, is that we did it with meaning, with care, fun, and I realized that you can be a punk and a professional, that there are two things that are going together. You can be independent in a field that no one gives a fuck about and actually earn a good living, and that you can build value without chasing competition or without ego, and also mostly by supporting each other and not stepping into someone else to get to where you want. And that's something that's been really strong in what we do. So basically, we never tried to fit in or break into any kind of industry, but we kind of like built our space into it, and and within that space try to support each other and do what we love with people we love and that we consider family, because that seemed like the best way to go through life somehow. Yes, and that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you all for listening.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yes.
Is there a punk song that's like on repeat in your head right now? And in honor of Fête de la Musique tomorrow, can we hear it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I have a thing with music. I listen to music very obsessively when I find a new artist that I listen to. And right now, I'm listening to this artist, which I think is really punk, even if it doesn't sound like punk. She's called Sofia Isela. And she's very radical in her lyrics. And it's beautiful what she does. And she does everything herself, which is quite punk, even though if the result is very more like hyper pop or something like that. I would be happy to play it, but I don't know if we can do that. So that's what you ask?
Yes.
Ah, interesting.
If possible.
I have no idea.
It's okay. No. Just to know her name is fine.
I think there's maybe copyright.
You can try it, yeah.
Yeah, maybe we try.
Oh yeah, once we cut the recording, that's it.
We need to connect it.
True. I would really strongly advise you to all listen to this. Like, her lyrics are insane. She's very radical. It's like, fuck. It's so crazy. Like, it's a very radical feminist version of Billie Eilish and Lana Del Rey, basically. But it's some of the lyrics are very, very hard. Just put in a very nice pop music, but it's very, very hard, actually. So yeah, oh God, give me. Sofia Isela.
Thank you.
Yes.
So you mentioned that you spent 3 years selling cell phones at Swisscom because you wanted to post. And
then you mentioned as well that there's like a significant business development component of what you're doing. You have to sell to artists, you need to do fundraising. Do you think that having this kind of like sales and business training helps serve as a foundation or prepare you then for the more business development side of your various activities that you're doing now?
I think I'm still trying to figure out if it's the case, because for a long time I was like, this was useless, and I kind of like, my parents have been very supportive, so I had never anything to complain about. But at one point I was like, to my dad, I was like, man, you are a musician. I told you I want to play music and go to a music school, and you guys forced me to go get a diploma that was useless. You know, I was literally sleeping when I had like school. Like, and at the end, they weren't even like waking me up. I remember my rights teacher, my legal teacher, she told me, she was like, it was the last year, she was like, we're just not gonna wake you up anymore. Because there was no point. But to some extent, I believe it must have helped, because, you know, I obviously learned about accounting. You know, it was just not retails. I was just not the front end. I was also doing back office management and all that. So obviously, it helped with like stocks and like sales technique. Maybe it's hard to apply within the punk realm, you know, but you can to some extent. But I guess what really helped is that my mother was such a like great admin, and she told me administration is key in everything. Like, the world works on administration, so be good at it. And that really helped, especially coming in the punk scene where it's the one thing that no one wants to take care of. And so I guess in the end now I can say that it helped to some extent, yeah.
So your mom is the Swiss one, yeah?
Precisely, yes. And
Making sure.
yeah, and I can tell that my dad would be nowhere where he is if she wasn't there, actually. Yeah.
I have two questions. First, are you playing anywhere nearby coming up so we can see coil events?
Yes, we're playing at Paleo Festival. Well, that's not really cool because it's probably sold out.
Or should we like look at your web, or how do we find out?
Yeah, you can also, there's a website called callguns.ch, of course. We're playing not far from Lausanne in October. That's very far away. It's in Etanières. Small place, but really cool festival. We don't play that much in Switzerland, that's true as well. And if you want to find out a little bit more about the band as well, not just the music, which I hope you're gonna like it, I'm not sure. I don't know. We also like, there's still on the, I don't know if you watch television or not, but on the replay of RTS, they have this documentary that we did about our latest record, which is still available. It's all in French, but we're going to release a English subtitled version in the next weeks or so.
Okay. Oh, I have a second part. So okay, it's pretty. Do you have grand ambitions for what's next? You know, you started the label. Do you have plans for where you want it to go, or are you just living in the moment and loving it?
No, I'm absolutely not living in the moment. It's stressing me out just thinking about it. I'm trying to work on my letting it go thing, but it's not, no. Well, now that I'm, you know, it's a bit stupid, but like somehow I'm getting to my 40s, and then I built all these things with my friends, and the band is going well. We were able to pick up where we were back before COVID, and it's going great, to be honest. I don't think we're ever gonna be a stadium band, but it's growing a lot, actually. And with the label, I'm gonna try to reduce a little bit, because all of what I did was to be able to live from music, but the thing that I do less, besides playing shows, of course, is actually being creative in music, which is just how it happens. But now that I have the financial stability, and I have the resources, the financial resources to actually hire people, and I'm quite in the middle of it right now, so it's a very complicated time, because now I'm training 3 people at the same time while being on tour, and while having to handle all the day-to-day business for all the stuff that I do. So it's quite challenging, but I have some horizon now, because I know I've found the good people, and accept that I can delegate, you know. And so I decided that next year and the year after, I really want to be mostly an artist and go back to where I started. But I don't think it's going to work out because I'm going to have time, so I'm probably going to try to develop something else. But, you know, knowing that I'm going to have people around is really like a relief. Yeah. Yes.
So first of all, 40s suck, so brace yourself. No, and just as a comment, like I'm so happy that your father was a musician and he incentivized you. My father is a musician and he told me never work with music, and my parents were not supportive in that sense. So
Oh shit, sorry.
But going a bit in this future kind of line of questions, the thing with punk, and it was so nice that you managed to marry this with like work with love and intention so much, but also the thing with punk was this kind of breaking of the system and this revolution and this kind of challenging the system. And I think right now, not only in music, but we've been discussing in CreativeMornings, in creative arts, this whole new world and AI and everybody doing everything in their own computers and studios kind of breaking because of that. There is a lot that's being questioned on what's next. Do you have a little bit of vision on what's next? Not for you, but for the industry?
As a
like,
whole.
is there a new sort of punk revolution coming up?
I mean, I think the new punk revolution is going back to organic punk things.
Analogical.
Yeah, I mean, now, you know, with all socials and stuff, it's just basically AI talking to AI and community managers talking to community managers. Because no one wants to deal with this, artists at least. So, in the end, people are going to go back like they go back to the market to buy vegetables. They're going to go back in venues to get a real feel of things. And I'm not saying this as like if I was a boomer or anything and being like I'm against all of this. I think everything can be a tool and can be used for good as well. But I think there's just an overflow of things. And somehow I really hope that at one point people are going to reconnect to feelings and human interactions. And I think it's happening already, you know. And that's where real punk is going to get back into the game, I guess. Does that answer the question to some extent? Yeah?
Sure, yeah.
Yes.
What's up with the little A?
Well, okay. So when I did that yesterday at 1 a.m., I didn't see that A, first of all. I was on Canva and I couldn't manage to put the paper that way. So I used Word, and obviously I hit the A button. I was wondering if you did something when you set it up. I saw it and I was like, okay. So, so it's not supposed to be here. Yeah. Any more questions?
Just one
Yes.
more. Whenever I see punk, I identify that with destroying things, tattoos, really hard music. But then when you said that the veganism is associated with punk,
Yeah.
I was like, what? Where's the connection there?
Oh God, you still have 5 minutes to spare?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there was like, cliches have a hard time fading. So it takes dozens of years to happen. And of course, there's been punk with the no future thing for a long time because it was a response to, I don't know, like, God, sorry, I'm losing my words. It was a response to authorities and exactly. And so after that, there's been a new wave of punks, let's say it was the late 80s, maybe in the US, in response to this no future punk thing, destroying everything and doing drugs and blah, blah. There's this band, I can't remember the name now, Earth Crisis. And they had this song which was called Straight Edge. Straight Edge is the fact of, it's no promiscuity, you've understood? No alcohol, no drugs. And they started like putting these X's on their hands, which was in the US, when you were going to a show, if you were a minor, they were putting like an X on your thing. So this became a thing of like, being healthy, not fucking around and not doing drugs and try to build like a better society. And with that, and we're talking like, 80s, but like veganism and all that is older, obviously, but then it became like straight edge and veganism and animal, how do you say that in English?
Welfare.
Animal rights, animal welfare became a thing, and they blended together. And so punk has been for like 30, 40 years, been like, at the edge of feminism, veganism, animal protection, and all that, really. And like when I started touring, I got into punk really like when in the early 2000s. I was not, and I'm not vegan, but I started like going into these shows through a guy that was very hard vegan in 2003. So we were going to these shows, and the bands were almost greeting and being nice only to vegan people. So very, very angry, right? And because you need clashes to make things happen, I think. And so I started this, and I started hearing about veganism already in the early 2000s, which was already way before it became big as it is now. When I started touring, one of the singers of the band, the German band, 2007, he was a vegan for 15 years already. So I was touring with the vegan guys, so most of them were vegetarians. Most of the people in punk bands are vegetarians anyway, and a lot of them are vegans, and less people are straight edges, I have to say. And it was very hard in 2007, even in the US, to find a guacamole that didn't have like cream or something in it. It was really hard. So he was spending most of his time eating fries. Or hummus, exactly. And I realized that then, like hanging out in the more radical environment as well, into squats and stuff, that, I see myself as a progressive person or a feminist or, and all that. And when you meet the people that are really radical about it and they see you as almost evil, that shows you like how there's so many layers of understanding and of this. But yeah, punk has been at the edge of all of these things for a very long time, and a very caring. And it has changed. Like I remember in Spain, for example, squats were really like 15 years ago. They were really tough. You could see people like doing drugs everywhere and like living in like really poor conditions and not caring. But that started really changing when I started touring. And then going into a squat is crazy. Like it's so clean. Everything is so clean. People are well organized, and like, some of the radical squats, like you can't even like cook meat there. Like even if it's forbidden completely. So whether it's too radical or not, it's not for me to say, but like squats it's a very healthy environment with people that are really caring for each other. And I'm really happy to be part of this thing.
Are you vegan?
No, but since my cat passed, I somehow had the switch that I see every animal as a cat now, except fishes. It's just how it is now. So I stopped eating meat 2 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not a vegan. I'm not ready to be a vegan. I think might happen, but I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cool. Thank you.
Of course, we have to give a big shout out to our global sponsor, Adobe. They believe in the power of creativity and for community, which is something that we also deeply believe in at Creative Mornings. And who uses Adobe normally on a daily basis? Yeah, me too. Sweet. All right. So talking about that, Adobe we have partnered up with them. Level Up, and they are a series of online workshops and resources to help you find the right opportunities. And we have to give a shout out to our local sponsors. So our amazing cold brew was from Sleepy Bear. They are just Sugar. They're super nice, and they have really great artisanal coffee. Can you say that?
Speciality.
What's that?
Speciality.
Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. And Trigo, yay! Our lovely breakfast sponsor. If you haven't heard of them, they have 2 locations in Lausanne, and we love their cinnamon rolls very much. So, and of course, Co-Spire, where we're at now. Is it anyone's first time at Co-Spire? Oh, cool. Nice. Yeah, so they are a co-working space, as you can tell, and they have lots of options. So here you go. They have a meeting room. They also have a podcast room. I didn't know that. Yeah, you can rent that. And Nan and Lucio are super friendly, so I always come here as well to work.